Welcome into the best damn college football show out there. Bowl special edition with our main man, college football handicapper at wagertalk.com, Robbie Veno on Twitter at Rob Veno Sports. Robbie, welcome in. How you feeling?
I am good today, Drew. This is a big week. Lots and lots of bowl games. Great time of year starting with this evening. So we're going to get to, I think, the first eight coming up over the course of the next 3 days as our part of this segment and look forward to it. I mean, like I say, this is a big, big week. And we'll go over some notes here and try and give the people the best info we can.
We absolutely will, Robbie. And guys, on this segment, we are doing Tuesday, December 29th bowl games, followed by Wednesday, December 30th. And then New Year's Eve, we're doing the Thursday slate as well. So we got 8 bowl games we're breaking down here because we did have one cancellation. Missouri and Iowa, I don't believe are playing. But when we get to that, I guess we can talk with Robbie about it. He does have some ties there with Missouri. But Jeff, welcome in. Mike Love as well on Wager Talk YouTube. If you're watching via YouTube, via Periscope, whichever way, let us know you're watching in the chat box, where you're watching from, if you're liking the content. And of course, if you are, please smash that like button. It does help us out. But Robbie, let's start off with the first game up today on Tuesday, 5:30 Eastern, 2:30 Pacific time. The Cheez-It Bowl from Camping World Stadium in Orlando, Florida. This is the old Citrus Bowl. It's the same stadium. It's just not named the Citrus Bowl anyway. And of course, on ESPN, 5:30 Eastern, Oklahoma State and the Miami Hurricanes. We got a total of 61.5. Oklahoma State, pretty much prevailing number now, -1 point favorites here, almost a pick 'em price, Robbie. Oklahoma State 7-3 from the Big 12 Conference. Miami 8-2 from the ACC. What are you thinking here with the Oklahoma State Cowboys -1 point favorites against the Miami Hurricanes?
Yeah, it's interesting, Drew, because as we go through these games, I think the most important topic we're going to talk about is opt-outs. And there were plenty in this game. Especially for the Oklahoma State side. I mean, Miami got great news when De'Aaron King said not only will he play in this game, but he'll be back next year. But for Oklahoma State, a little bit different story as Chuba Hubbard, and I don't know how meaningful the Hubbard absence is as he preps for the NFL draft. Feel like Oklahoma State's good at running back. Tough loss on the offensive line with one of their top tackles. Tough loss in the secondary. Although, I've got a good friend of mine that's close, not only close, but I mean, is an alumni from Oklahoma State who is not all that concerned about the secondary here as well. So sometimes, Drew, as we go through these games, these opt-outs are going to be extremely meaningful. Sometimes they're going to be regularly meaningful, and sometimes they'll be less than meaningful. Here, I would put the Oklahoma State, if you wanted to use a meter from 0 to 10, I'd say it's probably worth a 5, what they've lost here. I don't think that they're totally damaged in this game. We'll see what Spencer Sanders and the offense can come up with. The good news is Tylan Wallace will play, in my estimation, should be the number 1 receiver taken in the NFL draft. To me, he's the best in the nation. Certainly, it could turn out to be a little bit of a showcase game for him if he's coming back to play. While others are opting out, I would assume head coach Mike Gundy is going to get him the ball. And the last time we saw Miami's defense, they were getting steamrolled on the ground by North Carolina. They were getting blistered through the air by North Carolina in that 62-point outburst that UNC had against them. So Miami's got their issues to correct as well. And remember, Drew, I think you and I had that game as part of our analysis. And remember Manny Diaz's quote, North Carolina has our full attention. And then they come out and give up 62. So I don't know if being motivated to play this game means all that much for Miami. It would seem to me that if they're outclassed, then they're outclassed no matter what their motivation is. I'm not saying that they're significantly outclassed here by Oklahoma State, but certainly Oklahoma State from the Big 12, a tough opponent. I think in overall analysis of what Oklahoma State will be able to do on offense, I think they'll be fine. I think they'll be able to run the football. I think they'll throw the football. When the total was 58.5 2 days ago, I got in personally and boom, it hit 61.5, even some 62s earlier this morning. I think it settled back into that 61.5 range or whatever. But I think people were seeing the same thing I was seeing. Miami is a big play offense against a defense that if you get into extreme metrics, you'll find that Oklahoma State, while they're a pretty good overall defense, their Achilles heel is giving up big plays. So I'd expect the Eric King and the offense to be explosive here. I would think the same of Oklahoma State. Don't know that Miami can match up with Wallace. I think the running game will be okay. Just that when you tack a field goal onto the total, Drew, you have to rethink 58.5 to 61.5. That's a big deal. It could still get there. I might prefer to play first half over in this game, thinking that the offense has come out hitting on all cylinders pretty well. But the argument to that is always the layoff heading into the game, rested or rusty. I think a lot of these teams are as healthy as they've been as far as COVID is concerned. The ones that are playing see that in a lot of instances. I think we see that here with both of these teams. I'd probably still lean a little bit over, Drew. Not sure on the side. I'd love to be on Miami. I just can't get there. So I think I would stick with small play on over the total here. And if you like it, play first half. You might get away with that one.
Robbie, I don't disagree with anything you really said. And coming into bowl season, just kind of seeing the matchups, when I first saw it kind of from a glimpse view, I was like, man, I want to be on the Canes too. In Orlando, Oklahoma State kind of had their issues this season, being a money burner, 4-6 ATS. But, really just last night and this morning is how I've been attacking bowl season, waiting literally until the day before and the day of the game to make my personal bets in this. After doing some research, I'm on Oklahoma State here, Robbie. Sidewise -1. I do think it's a buy low opportunity, guys, mainly because, Robbie, talking about the Miami defensive line, both Rashay and Phillips aren't playing. They're out. That's 30 tackles for loss. Those are their two best, up front defensive guys getting that push, how important that is in the sport of football. So I think that's going to be a big loss here for Miami. In Oklahoma State, yes, some guys opting out, but I don't think it's really big. You bring up Chuba Hubbard, he was kind of on and off all season long. He had obviously that issue. I don't know if I want to call it an issue, but some locker room stuff going on with the shirt that Mike Gundy wore. And so I'm not sure how big how much his head was really in it this season. And they really did okay without him. So I'm not so sure that that's a big loss. I think it's more of a loss in opt-outs for Miami than it is for Oklahoma State. Derek King, look, awesome quarterback. I mean, over 6,000 yards at Houston, making the transfer over. Him and Rhett Lashley have really been a good mix at Miami. He's thrown for over 2,500 passing yards, ran for over 500 yards. But, overall, the Miami Hurricanes offense really wasn't all that explosive. 70th in success rate overall. And now they're having to go up against the Oklahoma State defense, Robbie. Top 10 in first downs allowed, 12th in success rate, 4th in passing success rate. So I think Miami's going to have a tough time making plays down the field. You brought up Tyrone Wallace. He is playing in this game, likely the number 1 wide receiver taken in the NFL draft. I think he can make some big plays against this Miami defense. Spencer Sanders, I know he's kind of had an up and down season. I'm a big fan. I think he can make some plays with his feet. Mike Gundy, he's a man. He's 40. He's well over 40 now, Robbie. He's also 9-5 in bowl games. And Manny Diaz, 0-1. Not a lot of really experience in bowl games. And last year against Louisiana Tech, Miami got blanked 14-0 against the Conference USA opponent. I believe the University of Miami only has one bowl win in like the last 15 or 16 years. For whatever reason, these guys have not played good in bowl season. And quotes, this is what I really liked about your analysis here. Both were kind of coaching positives from both camps, both Manny Diaz and Mike Gundy. Oklahoma State actually sent their kids home for Christmas. Then coming back, they only had about 5 preparation practices for Miami. So that's something to keep in mind. In a normal bowl season, you'd have about 14 or 15 practices getting ready for your opponent. Both of these two teams don't have a lot of preparation for their opponents. Not sure how much that factors in because it's kind of the same for both teams. But I would give an edge here coaching-wise to Mike Gundy having the success in bowls. Those are the reasons I bet Oklahoma State, Robbie.
Yeah, I can't disagree, Drew. I think that obviously, Miami had already lost Rousseau, pass rusher, and now they lose their second best pass rusher. That certainly helps Spencer Sanders. I think both of these dual threat guys will pose problems for the opposing defenses. And as you mentioned, Drew, Oklahoma State went through a bunch of the season with LD Brown and Desmond Jackson as running backs here, and Desmond Jackson really picked up the slack late because LD Brown got hurt. I just don't know, other than maybe the back seven, if they're that damaged by what they've lost in opt-outs here. Tylan Wallace, again, really a big key for Spencer Sanders to have him. Remember, Dylan Stoner, the other wide receiver, had a career game, the very last game of the season. Seems like he's been around forever making catches, but they have more options to go to here. So I think points are probably prevalent in this game. I think that obviously the number I got was the better number. We'll see if we can get up and over this 61 and a half here tonight.
Yeah, I mean, if you made me bet the total, Robbie, I'd be with you on the over. I think the lack of preparation helps offense really in a lot of forms of college football, but especially in bowl season. So that lack of preparation bowl schedule, I think will help both offenses. But guys, my bet for this is Oklahoma State -1 in the happy hour special for Tuesday night football. This is kind of cool. We're lining it up, Robbie, kind of back-to-back games here on a Tuesday night for bowl season. I don't think a lot of people watching the show will really shake their heads at that. Next game up here, guys, the nightcap, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific on ESPN again. Valero Alamo Bowl from the Alamodome in San Antonio, Texas, I believe. There is weather issues, but of course, this is controlled climate under the dome, so we don't got to worry about it from a betting perspective. We got Texas and Colorado, the Texas Longhorns and the Colorado Buffaloes. Looks like Texas now -7.5-point favorites here, Robbie. This has been a big move. Texas opened, 12, 13-point favorites here, now down all the way to 7.5, 65.5 being the total. Texas Longhorns, of course, from the Big 12 conference, 6-3 straight up, just 3-6 against the spread, 6-3 to the over as well. Colorado Buffaloes from the Pac-12 conference, 4-1, both straight up and ATS, Robbie, 3-2, slight trenders towards the over. What are you thinking here? Huge move towards the Colorado Buffs, and you're still catching more than a touchdown. That's the side I'm leaning, Robbie, but interested in your take.
Well, all based once again on Texas opt-outs, right? They probably had more people. I think I saw the total number being 17 players not going to participate in this game due to opt-outs, injuries, whatever. But the opt-outs are significant here for Texas, which will have to go with a lot of youth here tonight. Not that Texas youth is a bad thing, because it's usually 5-star youth when you're at the University of Texas. But let's go through the players that won't be involved here tonight, Drew. Their leading wide receiver, Brennan Eagles, will not play in this game. To me, that one is not as significant because the guy who fills his space is Tariq Black, former University of Michigan wide receiver who came to Texas this year. Tariq Black, very highly touted when he was at Michigan. I don't know that, it's that big of a drop off there. What is a drop off is the offensive line. You lose your top offensive lineman overall, left tackle Samuel Cosme, who is going to be a first-round NFL draft pick. So you're without a left tackle, and you're without your starting center due to injury. Now, the guys who fill those two spots tonight, your starting center, who makes all the offensive line calls, and your left tackle, who protects Sam Ehlinger's blind side, they're both going to be freshmen starting on this offensive line here. So, again, highly recruited kids, but thrown into this environment. Let's see how they do. I think the good news for Texas is that Colorado is neither a good run defense. We saw what Utah's Ty Jordan did to them in their last game. And of course, Ty Jordan tragically passed away within the last 4 or 5 days. But he absolutely shredded this defense on the ground. And Colorado's not a particularly good pass rushing outfit. So maybe Texas can get away with these freshmen on the offensive line. Head coach Tom Herman said, we're going to play a little puzzle type game, mix and match here. But that's probably the biggest area of significance where opt-outs are concerned. If you go to the defensive side of the football for Texas, you get more. Their top linebacker, Joseph Asai, again, an NFL draft pick, first team Associated Press All-American, number 1 on the team in tackles for loss. opt out. Their best run stuffer, Taquan Graham, opt out. Both starting safeties, opt outs. The Texas defense is somewhat gutted down the middle as well. If you just start from defensive tackle through the linebacking core and then into the secondary. So they've got issues that could help the Colorado offense in this game. For Colorado, big loss here was in the Utah game when their linebacker Nate Landman went out, and I think it was the third quarter. Utah was trailing at the time by 2 scores. Utah went on to score 4 consecutive drives once Landman left the game. He is by far the best player on that defense. You saw it that day because once he left, they fell apart. He's the signal caller for that defense. He's the heart and soul of that defense. So Colorado, not only aren't they very good on defense, without their best guy, you would think Texas can have some openings here, both rushing and throwing the football. Also, real quick, yesterday, Levante Chenault, Laviska's little brother, suspended for this game. So they lose out on a wide receiver here for quarterback Sam Neuer, who hasn't been the most consistent of all. You know, when you add it all up, Drew, I think it comes really simple. Simple keys. Can Texas overcome the offensive line losses? I would say check. I think they can just because of the opponent. Can Colorado make some hay in the passing game? Because we all know that Broussard's probably going to run pretty well. Texas is going to load up here, guys, against the run and dare Colorado to pass against them. So it's imperative that Sam Neuer in the passing game works. I think without both starting safeties and without your top outside linebacker, it probably does. There's a lot of speed. Remember, Jerry Rice's son had 2 touchdowns in the final game against Utah, one on a return and one on a quick screen. And then motivation. I think the motivation here seems good for both. People are going to bring up Tom Herman's bowl record as far as covering spreads. Generally speaking, he's an underdog in those situations. He's not an underdog here. He's a favorite. You know, again, the total, Drew, just sits in a place where I'm not fully comfortable. Otherwise, I would be on over because I think you're going to see a lot of fireworks from both sides. The play caller for Colorado, the offensive coordinator, Darren Shiverini, an air raid guy, I think will open up the playbook here tonight. Colorado's had a pretty good first season under their new head coach, Carl Durrell. I think they'll use it as a springboard. To me, if you want to play, it would be a slight play over. And in just sheer talent, Texas is the better team. Has the line come down far enough to take back at 7.5? Maybe it has, maybe it hasn't. But I think over is probably the right way to go.
Robbie, this is a tough one. This is an interesting handicap because you bring up Todd Herman's bowl season record. I think that stuff is important. How guys prepare for each bowl game, but the opt-outs for Texas make it a very tricky handicap. I mean, just to add something on there, all 5 team captains opted out. That's kind of scary to me if you're looking to bet Texas. I mean, the leaders on the team are all not going to be playing. 2 defensive linemen, like you talked about, 1 first-team All-American, both safeties. It's just, can Colorado take advantage of that? I mean, yes, the record's good, but it's kind of a short sample size here. How good is the Pac-12? I'm not 100% sure, to be honest. And their head coach. I mean, I don't want to take too much against him. I mean, Durrell, he was coach of the year in the Pac-12. They had the offensive player in the year in the Pac-12 with running back Broussard. I think they're going to give them the rock a bunch. And if they're able to run it, Robbie, I want Colorado. Just because I think they'll be able to control the clock. Now, I'm not so sure that they'll be able to. That's kind of a big part of this handicap. Colorado defense, also top 10 in rushing success rate and havoc created. But to your point, I think top to bottom roster talent, even with the opt-outs, is Texas advantage. But I mean, the stats are there for Colorado. It's a very tricky handicap. I've been betting each and every bowl game, and I bet personally Colorado plus the 7.5. And in 2020 overall, and especially in bowl season, when I'm betting an underdog, I put money on the money line as well. So get that extra plus price here on the Buffs to win it outright, just because going back over 10 years, guys, only 14.8% of underdogs lost yet covered the spread, meaning, there's more volatility in bowl season at this point. So, Yeah, I don't know, Robbie. I mean, in this game, I'm going Colorado plus 7.5, but to tell you the truth, I'm not very confident in it.
Yeah, I think Drew, if you're on Colorado, you hope that Sam Neuer in the passing game can make some plays in that passing game because it'll back Texas up. Texas is going to challenge him. I mean, every quote out of Texas is, "We're going to go after Broussard. We're going to stop Broussard. Our number one priority is Broussard." So taking the ball on 1st and 10 and handing it to Broussard, 2nd and 8 and handing it to Broussard, it's not going to work. You've got to have some openings in the passing game. And Texas does have some vulnerability, like I say, in the back seven, especially with the opt outs. So, looking at Sam Neuer, he hasn't played that bad. His overall numbers look bad, the completion percentage and whatnot. But when you watch him in general, he's a good dual threat to me. And one other thing about the 5 captains for Texas opting out, isn't it interesting that those guys all go, and yet probably their best player, Sam Ellinger, the quarterback, stays to run this team? And to me, that's where I think Texas is probably motivated. When your quarterback and your star quarterback comes back to play, I think there's a motivation angle for that. I think Colorado will be super motivated, so we'll get a good game. I don't think either team lays down here. Like you said, it's a tricky handicap. My best, final thought on it is that it probably gets a lot of points here, and like you say, controlled environment should help these two teams. I think maybe you get over the number.
Okay, Robbie. Well, let's give a shout out here to the chat box before we hit the next set of games here. Robert Rainey, truck driver in Northern Nevada, listening to us, Robbie, on I-80 right now. I don't know if I've ever been on I-80, but thanks for listening in, Robert, and drive safe, buddy. We got KT Prop TJ asking a question here, Robbie. If holding a Colorado plus 12 ticket, do you come back on the other side now? TJ, I would say, first off, great bet at the open. Second, I don't know if I would. I really don't. I think kind of, middling these games in bowl season is a tough ask. It's always a tough ask, but in bowl season with the volatility, and you're not getting the key number of 7 either, at least at this point. Maybe wait some more and it passes through that 7. So I might wait, TJ. Do you have any thoughts on that, Robbie?
Yeah, I think it would be a super bet if, in fact, you were getting 7. If you can get 7 even as a push, then you get 8, 10, and 11, which are fairly common numbers in football to land on. So you're getting a whole host of numbers there. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. No, I would probably say that you can come back with Texas at this point. I mean, if your original thought was I like Colorado, don't play as much on Texas at this point just because you're taking back. But if you feel like you want to play a little bit of that on Texas, I wouldn't. I wouldn't go against that.
We got Sebastian asking, are we doing the Friday and Saturday games? We are doing it. We're doing every single game on the board like we have all season long, Sebastian, but it's just the Friday and Saturday games. We're bringing in Teddy Covers tomorrow to finish off the every game on the board in college football, along with Minty Bets and Ski Profit for the NFL every game on the board. That is tomorrow, mid-afternoon on the Wager Talk YouTube channel. So, Robbie, moving on to the Wednesday card here, Wednesday, December 30th. We have 2 games scheduled. We got the Missouri and Iowa game here, Robbie, but that is postponed, correct?
It is postponed. The COVID breakout occurred with the University of Missouri. They're the ones who actually Iowa had it prior to them. Mid-month, Iowa had it, shut down their facilities. Missouri came back and canceled the game altogether a few days ago.
Okay, so we got 2 games now on Wednesday. The middle game knocked out, so we got a 12 noon Eastern and 8 p.m. Eastern kick. Wisconsin, Wake Forest, followed by Florida versus Oklahoma. So we'll go in order of kickoff here. 12 noon Eastern, Wisconsin at Wake Forest. I said at, of course, it is a bowl game, not at versus. Wisconsin Badgers minus 7.5 point favorites here, Robbie, but there is some opinion in the marketplace right around this teaser protection number. We are seeing anywhere from 7.5 to 9, 8.5 mostly though. 51.5 being the total. What are you thinking with the Badgers as they play the Demon Deacons from Wake Forest?
Yeah, and although it's not a true home field, certainly drew Charlotte, North Carolina, much closer to Winston-Salem, where Wake Forest is from, than it is to Madison, Wisconsin. But we know Wisconsin, and I don't know how many are allowed in the stadium. I didn't check that out here. Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte, North Carolina. But we know, as far as college football teams go and even college basketball teams go, Wisconsin travels as well as anybody. So if there's a chance to get out of Madison and get to Charlotte, North Carolina, the fans will do it. Again, I just don't know how many are allowed in. You know, to me, Drew, obviously, anybody who watched college football this season, it's a disappointing year for the Wisconsin Badgers, who opened up like a house of fire. Graham Mertz started great, and then all of a sudden they went right down the drain. They had a lot of struggles with coronavirus on this team this year. And like I said early, it's interesting to note that there's a bunch of these teams, and especially in our group of games here, that are beyond that and now are as healthy as they've been all season long. It's generally not the thing where you're healthier than you've been all season long in your very last game. Usually you're banged up, nicked up, but it's not the case with a lot of these teams as they get a lot of people back. For Wisconsin, important to note the people they're getting back. Their two leading rushers. Their top guy, Jalen Berger, by far the best running back on the team, both leading rushers back for this game. Quarterback Graham Mertz, who got hurt in their last game of the season, fully healthy, he will start this game. Their top two wide receivers, Danny Davis, Kendrick Pryor, those two guys haven't played the last two games. They're listed on the Wisconsin depth chart as the starters for this game. So both running backs, both receivers, your quarterback, and they also get their top offensive lineman back for this game. So that's a lot of offense for Wisconsin, a team that has struggled simply because there's been so many absences all season long. So when you fundamentally match up Wisconsin against Wake Forest at the line of scrimmage, both things being equal, both teams being healthy for the most part, you certainly favor Wisconsin in that type of matchup. They should be able to run here. We saw what Mertz could do the first game of the year as far as balancing out the offense when he threw real well. If they have both elements of their game going, they're a difficult team to beat. So important, the guys that they've gotten back. Now, as equally important on the other side of the field for Wake Forest is the fact that they're by far their best defensive player, Carlos Basham, a sack specialist, has opted out. Wake Forest doesn't have many good defensive players. That was one of their best in the last 5-6 years. He opts out. We know that Kenneth Walker, one half of the running back duo, opted out before their last game against Louisville. And when they played Louisville, Drew, if you go back and look at the statistics there, Louisville being a bad defense, they were able to contain Wake Forest statistically for the most part. Wake Forest didn't run well with only Christian Beal-Smith at running back, and they were under a lot of pressure at quarterback. Sam Hartman didn't have the best of days against the Louisville defense, which makes you wonder, how good can they be against this Wisconsin defense, which is ranked number 1 overall in the nation as far as total defense yards allowed per game is concerned? Jim Leonard, famously known as a solid defensive coordinator who can come up with game plans to frustrate teams. So I think that there's some bad matchups here on both sides of the line for Wake Forest. If they're going to do anything, Wake Forest, they'll have to do it through their passing game, in my estimation. I think they'll be bottled up at the line of scrimmage if they try to run. And we know that Wake Forest is built on misdirection, up-tempo, these quick hit passes that they can look real good at times like they did against North Carolina, and they can look very, very below average like they did against a good defense in Clemson first game of the year. So, to me, Wake Forest has issues scoring points in this game. I don't know that I think Wisconsin, from everything I read, very happy to be back out on the field with the full complement of offensive players to see what they can do here. Their run game against Wake Forest, 90th run defense. Their offense against Wake Forest, 107th ranked offense. I just don't know that these matchups work here, Drew. Knowing, or at least believing from what I've read, that Wisconsin is motivated, I can't really see any other way to play this game. I think that Wake Forest gets down, and as the game goes on, Jim Leonard and that Wisconsin defense will get more accustomed to this misdirection game and these quick hitter type passes that they throw. I think it could be a long day for Wake Forest in that game.
Robbie Veno on Twitter at Rob Veno Sports. Guys, check him out, wagertalk.com. He's got plays up right now. Also, college football in December. His streak is 20-7 up over 74% return on investment. No, that's 74% winners and up over 36% return on investment. So check them out. And also a short-term streak here, 7-2, 78%. And all sports year to date, number 2 at wagertalk.com. He's up over 189% return on investment. Robbie Veno, college football handicapper. And Robbie, you're handicapping some other sports too, college basketball and NBA.
Yeah, college basketball. I get started this week, Drew. Last year, I took a wait and see approach, just because I thought it would benefit me because there was so much else going on, and it did. Wound up finishing number 1 at Wager Talk last year in college hoops. This week will be my first really active week. I believe I'm 2-1 so far to the season. Been very, very stringent with the plays thus far until I could really get into it. But yeah, college basketball, NBA, obviously. And NFL. So it's that time of year for us, right, Drew? If we didn't like it, we wouldn't do it. But boy, there is a lot going on when you wake up every single day.
Robbie, we got Tony asking anything from you guys on the Florida game. Well, thanks for asking, Tony, because that's the next game up, 8 p.m. Eastern tomorrow night. We're talking Wednesday, December 30th here, the nightcap. Florida versus Oklahoma. This game on ESPN. We're seeing 70 being the total with the Oklahoma Sooners -3 here, Robbie. Flip favorite. Florida was the favorite. Now Oklahoma the favorite. Of course, talking about opt-outs, maybe outside of Texas. The Florida Gators having the most key opt-outs here. I guess you could say the University of Miami as well, but Florida losing a lot on offense here, Robbie. What are you thinking with the Gators and Sooners?
Well, and it was a cluster of opt-outs at one position, right? Their top 4 receivers all out of this game. And when you're the University of Florida, your best option in any game is to have your aerial attack and go outscore the other team. They almost did it with Alabama. They lose 52-46. We know how good the Alabama defense is, and certainly Florida was able to put up a lot of points with Kyle Pitts, with Kadarius Toney, but without these guys for this game, Florida has not been a great running team all season long. I don't believe that they can lean on the run here against Oklahoma, which is a pretty good run defense. And Kyle Trask is now, he faces the task of quarterbacking and trying to throw for 400 yards with wide receivers that haven't really gotten a lot of production so far this year. So for Florida, the opt-outs at the same position are just, in my mind, they're critical because it's everything that Florida does well is throw the football and make it tough on you. Now, Oklahoma's got a really good pass rush. It's possible if Trask doesn't have his timing down with these guys on the field that they could get home in a couple of times here. The shift we're looking right here now from Oklahoma to -3. I want to point that out because in my power ratings, Drew, strictly based on both teams being healthy for this game when it first opened, I made the game Oklahoma +1. So now you've got a 4-point move, and you have to counter punch and think, is that 4-point move justified with the absences for Florida? I think that the absences are one thing. I think if you combine it with what I believe to be a lack of motivation, that would seal the deal. Florida loses the SEC championship game to Alabama, close but no cigar. And then onto their bowl game where they have all these guys just heading for NFL draft prep. To me, that shows a team that, it's been a good season. Let's get out of here. I don't see a lot of motivation from the Florida side. However, Oklahoma closed the season really strong, probably playing their best football at the end of the year. A couple of tough games against Iowa State. Certainly one a loss, one a win in the Big 12 championship game. But I think for Oklahoma, what happened was Spencer Rattler stopped throwing interceptions. I think in his last 24 quarters played, he's only thrown 2 interceptions. And they got their top running back, Stevenson, back a couple of games ago. So they're able to balance offense now. Florida, besides the wide receivers, they lose arguably their best cornerback for this game. So you can see a Florida defense that has been lousy all season long. And I guess equally run and pass, right? They've been bad both ways. But if you're taking one of your top starting cornerbacks out for this one, you would expect Oklahoma and their wide receiving core to have some openings in that secondary. When you put all of this together, Drew, I think that the 4-point move is very justified. I do think that as you get closer to game time, you're going to see more and more Oklahoma money. I don't know that there will be a lot of Florida take back here, considering the public will probably follow the opt out narrative here. But I think at -3, well worth it here. I think Oklahoma, a team that wants to close out the season. Hey, listen, even if it's against a shorthanded SEC team, it's an SEC team. And the Big 12 has taken a lot of, heat for not being able to beat SEC teams. So I'm sure Lincoln Riley and company come motivated. And I think they get out of there with a victory bigger than 3 points.
Yeah, Robbie, big question marks like you talked about on the Florida side. We saw what Trask. I mean, I think he's a great pro prospect. Just his accuracy down the field, how he throws the deep ball. He might be the best pure passer in the country. But we've seen how he performs when Kyle Pitts wasn't in the playing in the game. It wasn't as good. Now you're taking away other key prospects. He's not the type of player that can really overtake the game by himself. He needs those playmakers on the outside to help him. I don't think this sets up well for the Gators, but you do talk about, the SEC and being in bowl games and guys stepping up. They have recruited well. So it could be a situation like that where it's just the next guy steps up. I don't know, though. I'm not betting that way. It's Oklahoma or pass for me, Robbie. We got 4 games left here for Thursday, December 31st, New Year's Eve, taking us pretty much all day, starting at 12 noon Eastern, all the way to 8 p.m. Eastern time, right up until the ball drops there, if they're still doing it that this year. I hope so. But Robbie, we got about 15 minutes left here to get through these 4 games. So starting off Thursday, 12 noon Eastern, we got 317, 318, Mississippi State versus Tulsa. Of course, this is SEC versus AAC. We got the Tulsa side of it, the AAC team favored here, -2.5, 46 being the total. Robbie, I don't think it's enough. I think Tulsa's the side here. This defense against the pass-happy Mississippi State offense that has really been touch and go all season long. This Tulsa defense is for real. They've proved it against teams that have the type of profile of offense that Mississippi State does, and they've performed well. I think Tulsa's the side here. That's what I bet personally, -2.5. What are you thinking here, Mississippi State versus Tulsa, Robbie?
Well, it's our first weather game, right? You're going to have rain throughout this game. Not incredibly heavy rain, but you will have steady rain throughout the game. 15-mile-per-hour winds throughout this game. If you like Tulsa and you were making a checklist of, good and bad for them heading into this game, I think in the bad column, you would ask yourself, what would their morale be after losing that AAC championship to Cincinnati on the very last play of the game? They came back. They tied that thing at 24. Since he kicks a field goal as the gun sounds and Tulsa loses. Can Philip Montgomery get these guys back up one more time? Now, if we judge on their 2020 history, Drew, the answer's got to be yes, because if there's a team that you could put, the bumper sticker or the label or the name tag of, we never give up, you would put it on Tulsa. They've been coming back all season long, individual games, season-wise. Their schedule was not fluid whatsoever. It was play a game, don't play for 2 weeks, play a game, don't play for a week, play another game. It was hard for this team. And still they showed up and competed for 60 minutes in every single game. So, while morale might be a question, I didn't find anything in my reading to suggest that it's a reality. So I'm going to stick with Clemson comes to play. Remember, Philip Montgomery, the head coach of Tulsa, is an air raid guy by nature. Came from, I think Philip Montgomery came from the Art Briles tree, I believe. So he's an air raid guy, and he should be able. I mean, Tulsa basically is in nickel and dime defenses all the time anyway, because they face so many of those offenses in the AAC. Now, this year they didn't face them all because of coronavirus, but they did face Central Florida, Drew, and we know Central Florida likes to whip it around a lot, and they held them to 330 passing yards, which is less than UCF usually gets. And they played SMU, which whips it around a lot, and they only threw for 200. So when you said this team, Mississippi State, fits the profile of a lot of opponents, those two in particular, for sure they fit the profile. And Tulsa came up pretty good. I think covered both of those games, won SMU outright and covered against UCF. Mississippi State, also a pretty good defense. You have to remember that they played in the SEC West. They played all those teams. It's not an easy trek to go through an SEC schedule. And their schedule included Georgia with JT Daniels, not minus JT Daniels, but with JT Daniels at quarterback. They played Georgia and still only allowed 380 yards per game, Tulsa 340. So I think you got two real good defenses here. Mississippi State's quarterback, Will Rogers, the freshman who took over for KJ Costello as the starter for this team, he's been better as of late. I mean, they racked up 51 or 52 against Missouri. Two of those were special teams or defense touchdowns. I think maybe they were both defense touchdowns, but still 37 points. And the offense is starting to get there, but it has never really clicked for Mississippi State. I think both defenses are the best units on the field by far here, especially in weather on a grass field. I could see this one staying under the number. It's probably the way I would lean. If you asked me which side you got to play the game, which side would you take? I would probably take the Tulsa side plus the points. I just think it's a very competitive, much like a field goal game either way. And for Tulsa to win outright would be no surprise to anybody in this contest. Their best defensive player did opt out, Drew, for Tulsa. Their top linebacker is out of this game. But again, I just don't know that it's that big of a difference against a team that's not going to run the football. All they're going to do is pass, and Tulsa plays the pass very well.
Good breakdown there, Robbie. And it looks like the chat box agreeing with you. Robert, Abby leaning towards the under. What the wind? It looks like about 20 miles per hour. They're in Fort Worth, projected on Thursday, Robbie.
Yeah, earlier today I showed 15, but if it's changing up to 20, it makes it even harder on Mississippi State, right? A team that's not going to run the football. So bad weather conditions for a passing team against a good pass defense. I think if you had to play a side, you'd look Tulsa. And I do think that the defenses are the best units on the field, so probably an under for me.
Yeah, a lot of Tulsa to the under. It looks like 36 degrees. And Robbie, that's kind of another question for handicapping. What websites do you want to go off of for wind speed? I like AccuWeather, but really, I don't know. Expert weatherman. I'd like to think I am, Robbie, but
do you remember when we did the show with Ralph, and Ralph was telling us about a government weather website that he uses? And at the time I wrote it down and then I forgot about it. I would have to ask Ralph again, but he claimed that was the most accurate weather website on the web. I'll see if I can't get that again. I mean, football is basically over now, but it would be important to have for next year. I think he really believed in that one website.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't know. I like AccuWeather, Robbie. And if you're looking for actual rain or snow, what I like to do is Google the actual stadium's webcam, and you can go look at it before, so you can kind of get eyes on the prize there if that's what you're looking for. But it's hard to tell if there's actually wind just from a webcam. But if you're actually looking for rain or snow, that could work. Thank you, Tyrone, for that nice comment there. And yeah, we got a lot of people here in the chat box, Robbie, joining us. Of course, Johnny Outlaw, Abby. We got Ashley Waite from Hawaii. We also had Bill from Texas, I believe. So, guys, thanks all for joining us, and we'll continue here. We got 3 more games for the Thursday card, and then Teddy Covers coming in tomorrow for the Friday and Saturday card, Robbie. But looks like next game up here. Some people excited about this one in the chat box. We got Keith saying he's looking forward to our thoughts on Ball State versus San Jose State. Can his alma mater get the first bowl W? Of course, we're talking next game up here, 2 p.m. Eastern. Ball State versus San Jose State. San Jose State, little Sparty, -9.5, even -10 starting to show up here, Robbie. So the betting marketplace really liking this San Jose State team. You can't blame them, Robbie. I mean, undefeated, straight up, undefeated against the spread. Surprised they're not getting more playoff talk. I mean, I say that tongue in cheek, but seriously, 63.5, 64 being the total here. What do you think in Ball State versus San Jose State, Robbie?
Well, I know that as much as I've liked San Jose State this year, Drew, you've liked them even more. I know they've cashed tickets for you consistently. They've cashed tickets every week for everybody who is willing to back them. The biggest reason why San Jose State has been able to cash tickets has been the vast improvement on the defensive side of the ball. And they could score last year with Josh Love at quarterback and their trio of wide receivers. All those guys back this year making plays again. and the quarterback Nick Starkel, coming from Mississippi State, has played pretty well at quarterback for them. So the offense hasn't missed a beat, but that defense is top 20 in the nation right now. And if you just compare that, and even go back, and if you really want to watch the replay of the Boise State San Jose State Mountain West Championship, where San Jose State pretty much dominated that game. Boise did not have a lot of opportunity to score points in that particular contest. So San Jose State, defensively far improved, and that leads me to the reason why I would play them here, Drew, because Ball State, great win against Buffalo in that championship game. Jarrett Patterson gets hurt for a little while. I think he came back in that contest and ran. Ball State got behind early, gave up 3 touchdowns on the first 3 drives. But their defense all season long hasn't been very good. I mean, their secondary gets the most praise, but against this set of receivers and against this quarterback, I've seen Ball State shredded in games this year, and I just think the disparity in defensive in defensive ability here is so huge in favor of the San Jose State side that it's worth laying the points just on that, let alone the offensive side, where San Jose State has found a way to also run the ball. I think they ran for 226 against Hawaii. And when they can run and throw, they're very dangerous. You could do both against Ball State. Ball State drew Plitt, a guy who had a good season, but a guy who will make some mistakes. And certainly when Ball State had their top running back opt out 2 games left in the season, it hurt them a little bit. I just think San Jose State's the class team here, Drew. I don't think that the point spread is high enough. I think they can win by 14, 17, maybe more, because of Ball State's inability on defense. For me, it would be San Jose State the whole way. The total we've seen push up, and I guess people figure that Ball State can get their share. But I'm really, if Boise State couldn't get anything against San Jose State of significance, I'm not sure that Ball State can. So for me, it would be San Jose State.
All right, like in San Jose State, me too. Like Robbie said, I mean, I've been betting them. I didn't bet them the first game, but I think I bet them each and every game thereafter. And Robbie, they've been a great bet. I mean, winning, covering every single game. One of their games, I guess, was a push, but they were running away from UNLV, and if you got a good number, you cashed on them there. What Brent Brennan's been able to do here at San Jose State, you can just see it in their defensive front. The defensive linemen, the linebackers, they're really good. I mean, they're recruiting well there at San Jose State, and now you're going up against a MAC team in Ball State, which it's a nice story. Drew Plitt's a good quarterback for MAC standards, but Robbie, let's face it. I mean, they worked their way through the MAC schedule. They beat a Buffalo team where they got up early on them, and Buffalo's not really capable, the type of offense you want playing from behind. So I think that game kind of makes them look a little bit better than they really are. You got to have some cojones here to bet Ball State. Now, anything can happen in bowl season, but, the MAC as a conference is usually, kind of punching up in class in terms of roster talent. I could see that here. I think San Jose State blows them out, Robbie.
They'll be motivated, Drew. There's no question. You got a motivated favorite, the better defensive favorite, the better offensive favorite. I don't know what more you could ask for here in that game. So for me, it would probably be, in fact, not probably, it would be the San Jose State side. I'm trying to find the weather on that game, and it's not bad. It's the game in Tucson, Arizona, where just a little bit of clouds, 40-degree weather, so it should be good.
All right, Robbie, next game up here, we're heading to the Liberty Bowl. So we got an outdoor stadium here in Memphis, Tennessee. Weather a little iffy here. I guess we are still a day or two away. But Robbie, we got West Virginia versus Army. This is talk about tricky handicaps. Whenever I'm betting, the military academies, it always takes a little bit extra thinking in terms of matchup standpoint. But 211, 212, the rotation number, 4:00 Eastern kick. We're talking West Virginia versus Army. This game on ESPN. We got the West Virginia Mountaineers -7-point favorites, 41 being the total here, Robbie. This one in the Liberty Bowl Thursday afternoon. What are you thinking with the Mountaineers versus Army?
Yeah, it wouldn't be a Liberty Bowl without rain and mud. I mean, every year the same weather in Memphis for this game. You could almost write it in stone for next year. It'll be the same way. But, a couple of things that contradict here, Drew. First of all, I like the fact that Army has been playing steadily, right? This will be their third game within the last 19 days. They played Navy a couple of games ago, came back, played Air Force after they played Navy, just on the 19th, I think. And now they're going to play West Virginia in this bowl game on the 31st. So they don't have a long layoff. West Virginia has a tremendously long layoff. It'll be the first game. Well, they've played one game in the last 6.5 weeks when the kickoff comes. So that's a long layoff for West Virginia. Um, for West Virginia, it helps that they're another one of these teams under Neil Brown that is as healthy or has as healthy a roster as they've had all season long. So for West Virginia, their guys will be there. I think from what I said about Army playing consistently and West Virginia, maybe there's some rust because they have only played one time in 6.5 weeks. The other side of that coin is Army scheduling. Army's schedule has been ridiculously weak. For people out there, realize that this is the first Power 5 team that Army has played all season long. It is by far the best passing team that Army's played all season long. They played 4 triple options. And if you just go to the last 2 games, I mean, Army gets here on a 9-2 record, but they scored 10 points against Air Force and 15 against Navy. So it's not like their offense is blowing people's doors in, and this is going to be the best defense by far that they face. So fundamentals, check mark for West Virginia. Scheduling, huge check mark for West Virginia. Layoff, check mark for Army. They've been playing more consistently. And then it comes down to the triple option, right, Drew? Can West Virginia be prepared for this? Can they get off of these cut blocks that you never see all season long in the Big 12? They play a totally different style of offense there. And that's your question. And if West Virginia gets behind 7-0, 10-0, do they have enough offense against Navy to get back and cover more than a touchdown? Those are your huge questions here. That's why it's so difficult to handicap. On one end, I know West Virginia is the better team. I know that Neil Brown's going to bring them motivated, but Army just presents that unique style. And the fact that you don't worry about opt-outs with Army, right? Everybody's coming to play on Army. So I probably have to pass that game. I can't give any real good advice. I don't even know if playing under is great advice, although bad weather and a game that where the possessions will be short, probably only 7 or 8 per team. You hope for no turnovers if you're playing under because you don't want turnovers that result in points. But for me, it's probably a pure pass, at least right now on Tuesday.
All right, Robbie. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, West Virginia being able to stop the option is a key part of this handicap. And I hate reverting back to hey, watch the game and bet it live because anybody can really say that, not really telling you anything. But it is one of those situations where it's defending the triple option. If you're defending it well in the first quarter, you're likely going to be defending it well in the end of the game. Whereas if they're running against you with their triple option, it's one of those situations, Robbie. A lot of times teams don't figure it out throughout the game and then stop the triple option. So that is kind of something I would look to maybe bet this game in live. But I don't know. I lean Army here, and we got Johnny Outlaw saying Army money line plus 230 might be worth a shot. These military academies come bowl season, I tend to like to be betting on them because motivation isn't an issue. Opt-outs, all that. They're coming to play. So I lean Army for what it's worth. Robbie, just got news. What, Arkansas TCU suspended? That was our last game.
Oh, okay. There was a chance that was going to happen. I didn't see it before we started, Drew, but maybe that's just happened while we were talking here. So yeah, that could have been a very good game too. That's a shame.
Well, it's just popping up, and I'm trying to Google it to find out for sure if anybody in the chat box can help us. I'm not seeing any news, but it is suspended on the odds scrape. Do you want to just throw out anything here real quick if it isn't suspended and it's a mistake?
I thought both of these teams, every quote I read, Drew, everybody's motivated to play this game. Everybody's healthy to play this game. For Arkansas, their biggest concern was stopping quarterback Max Duggan, a dual threat. Arkansas's defensive weakness was against dual threat quarterbacks. And for TCU, being able to defend Felipe Franks. The total here was going to be 56 indoors at Cowboy Stadium in Arlington, Texas. So you have a fast track for both. Arkansas's defense faltered down the stretch under Barry Odom, and TCU, believe it or not, 29 points or more in 7 of their 10 games. So for me, this was going to be an overplay. If the game goes off, that's probably the way I'll lean. But if there's issues with COVID here, we may not see this game.
He's Robbie Veno. Check him out, wagertalk.com, on a 20-7, 74% run. ROI-wise, up over 36%. Wagertalk.com. He's got plays up right now. College football has been great. His hot streak in the short term, 7-2, 78%. Doing NBA, college basketball just getting off as well. So he's got some plays up and available right now. So check him out, wagertalk.com. Also on Twitter at Rob Veno Sports. I'm on Twitter at Drew Martin Bets. Guys, for watching on replay, that's cool as well. Feel free to drop a comment below. Please smash the like button if you're liking the content. And feel free to throw out your best bet here in the chat box, and we'll try to get it out to the watchers before we shut this down. But Robbie, anything else you want to throw out there before we do shut this show down?
Real quick, if we just go back to West Virginia Army here, Drew, remember that Neil Brown, when he was in the Sun Belt, did have a couple of cracks at Georgia Southern, which is a triple option team.
Good point.
So he may be able to, call upon some of that to help his defense learn their assignments. But again, you just can't simulate it with West Virginia. You don't have those type of players, and you don't have that type of blocking scheme. So he may be able to defend it. I don't know. For everybody out there that contributes to this show, watching, commenting, whatever, all you guys have a happy new year, safe, happy holiday. I don't know that we'll get back next week, Drew, right? We'll have to talk about it and see if we can find a time to maybe come back and do the championship game or something. I'm not sure. But by the time next Tuesday rolls around, all these bowl games will be completed.
Yeah, Robbie, what do you think? Best Damn College Football Show finale next Tuesday, 11 a.m. Pacific time, and we'll just break down early looks at the national championship game. Does that sound good for you?
Yeah, I'd be more than up for doing it, Drew. I think, though, at 11 next week, I have an obligation to Ralph from the college basketball show. But if we can find another time, I think we should do it. I think our viewers want us to do it. So maybe we can just find a time where we have 30 minutes, you and I, and we can get it done.
All right, Robbie. And people asking best bets for today. I'm going Oklahoma State is my best bet for today, Robbie, over the Miami Hurricanes, and the lack of defensive pressure with 2 of their best defensive linemen out. Also, some other defensive starters out for the Miami Hurricanes. So I'm going Oklahoma State, the Cowboys, -1. So to cover the 1 point, almost pick 'em spread here, Robbie, is my best bet for today. What about you, man? What do you got?
For games that we covered, right? Not just for today. I would go Wisconsin, Drew. I think the fundamental matchup is horrible for Wake Forest. I think Wisconsin wants to take a lot of frustration out in one game. Generally, they come to play in bowl games. Paul Chryst is a good coach where that's concerned. So give me Wisconsin minus the 7.5 here, or whatever the current number is, against Wake Forest. I just don't know that Wake Forest will be able to put up anything more than 13 points in that game.
All right, Robbie. Well, guys, follow him on Twitter at Rob Veno Sports. I'm on Twitter at Drew Martin Bets. Guys, best of luck with your bets. Thanks for tuning in. Happy New Year. I guess until next Tuesday in the early look at the national championship game, guys. So enjoy it.